This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Kenya urges citizens to get vaccinated as the Omicron variant drives a surge in infections. The United Kingdom unveils a $1 billion bailout for businesses hard hit by the pandemic. And search and relief operations continue in the Philippines as dozens are reported missing in the aftermath of Typhoon Rai. Hello and a very warm welcome to you wherever you're joining us to Africa Live, only on CGTN. I'm Mahia Mutua in Nairobi. Ramanyang joins me now with your business headlines.
That's right, Mahia. Here's what's coming up in the next 30 minutes. Tunisia announces record revenues from the collection of customs duties. We'll be looking at the numbers. And the South African utility Eskom has confirmed it will meet the end December deadline to start the unbundling process. We'll have the details on those stories and lots more coming your way in the course of the hour. For now, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Mahia.
Rama, thank you. We begin in the Indian Ocean island of Madagascar, where a boat has capsized, killing 19 people. Officials in Madagascar's Maritime and River Port Agency say 66 others are missing. The vessel was an overloaded cargo ship which was not authorized to carry people, according to officials. 45 out of 130 passengers on board have been rescued. The boat was traveling from Antamambe town to Sonirana Ivungu in northeastern Madagascar. According to Mami Randriana Voni, the director of the operations at the Maritime Agency, searches are underway to locate the missing persons. 3 boats have also been sent on that mission. Earlier on, a helicopter carrying the head of the National Gendarmerie, General Serge Gelé, crashed while on a search mission on Monday. Gelé was found alive on Tuesday morning after swimming for nearly 12 hours. On to health matters. The fast-spreading Omicron variant has become the dominant strain of the coronavirus in several countries. In the United States, it accounted for 73% of new cases over the past week. In Ireland, it has become dominant in less than 2 weeks. In neighbouring Britain, it has overtaken Delta to become prevalent in London and Scotland. The European Union's public health body has warned that Omicron will be dominant on the continent by early next year. The World Health Organization says the variant is causing infections in both vaccinated people and those who have recovered from the disease. It says it will be, quote, unwise to conclude from early evidence that Omicron is a milder variant than previous ones. The WHO is calling on people to travel less and cancel large Christmas and New Year gatherings. Meanwhile, U.S. stocks fell on Monday as fears of the Omicron variant clouded Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average slid over 400 points. The World Economic Forum has also decided to postpone its annual meeting until mid-next year. Well, there has been a dramatic rise in COVID-19 infections in Kenya attributed to the Omicron variant. Despite the sharp increase in infections, the latest data shows hospitalizations for severe illness are still low. CGTN's Robert Nagila has that report for us now.
Just 6 days after the first case of the Omicron variant was announced in the country, Kenya's seen a spike of COVID-19 cases.
The variant spreads very quickly.
Data from the Health Ministry shows between 4th December and 18th December, there were more than 7,000 positive cases recorded in the country. On Monday, the positivity rate was almost 30%.
So what we know right now is it is spreading very fast, but at the same time, it's not causing severe disease. So all we need to do scientifically, what we know is maintain social distance, wash hands, use your masks.
The latest data indicates hospitalizations and deaths recorded are much lower than witnessed with the Delta variant. The government's urging those yet to get vaccinated to do so, but the uptake of vaccines has been slow. Currently, The country has over 23 million vaccine doses, with close to 3.6 million Kenyans fully vaccinated. That's about 13.2% of the adult population.
With the Omicron variant, everyone is getting infected, whether you're vaccinated or not. But the thing is that those who are not vaccinated, just like with any other variant, are at a higher risk of severe disease.
Last month, the government announced Kenyans would be required to show a vaccine certificate from December 21st to access public and private services. But last week, the High Court suspended the order pending the hearing of a case filed by a businessman. Wabat Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Further afield, the UK's finance minister has announced a $1.3 billion bailout package to help the hospitality sector hit by cancellations over the Christmas holidays. Many businesses are losing trade due to a surge in COVID-19 infections. On Monday, more than 91,000 new cases were recorded in the UK. That's the second highest daily total on record. Our correspondent Nawid Jabarkil reports.
As COVID-19 infection rates continue to rise in the UK, pressures mounting on the government to take further measures to try and stop its spread, something that's not being ruled out by officials.
We agreed that we should keep the data from now on under constant review, keep following it hour by hour. And unfortunately, I must say to people, we will have to reserve the possibility of taking further action to protect the public and to protect public health, to protect our NHS. And we won't hesitate to take that action.
In terms of cases, the UK is the worst affected country in Europe right now, but Omicron's spread is affecting much of the continent.
There is now consistent evidence that Omicron is spreading significantly faster than the Delta variant. And it's more likely that people who have been vaccinated or have recovered from COVID-19 could be infected or reinfected.
With Christmas just days away, the WHO has urged people to avoid big get-togethers. But in the UK, officials could be reluctant to dictate any changes. Last year, a late U-turn saw many people unable to spend the day with their families, and any similar move could be politically damaging for a Prime Minister who's been mired in controversy lately. London's mayor has already said the city is cancelling its New Year's Eve celebrations for yet another year. But as the disruption continues, so too does the economic damage for businesses. The hospitality industry in the UK had been calling for clearer guidance from the government as trade dries up at one of the busiest times of year.
Firstly, we're announcing £1 billion in financial grant support, which means eligible hospitality companies will be able to claim a cash grant worth up to £6,000.
The financial help announced on Tuesday is a sign of the growing uncertainty that's hitting British businesses and consumers. And with Omicron spreading at pace, all the signs indicate that even tougher restrictions could be on the way. Nawid Jabarkil, CGTN, London.
Well, coming back to the African continent, the Ethiopian government has officially announced its forces have retaken all areas in the Afar and Amhara regions from Tigrayan rebels. The historic town of Lalibela, alongside several other major towns in the region, have also fallen back into government control. Rebel forces have, on the other hand, said that they have withdrawn from all these said regions so as to seek a peaceful resolution of the conflict. Here is CGTN's Girum Chala with more details.
After more than a year of heavy fighting between the government and rebel force in the northern regions, Addis Ababa has now announced it has managed to defeat the TPLF-led rebel force and retaken all areas in the Afar and Amhara regions. The Minister of Government Communications Service said this victory was achieved due to the strong frontline leadership of the armed force by the Prime Minister.
The rebel forces have been badly defeated. The intention, capability and psychology of the enemy are successfully destroyed. The joint mission of our hero members of the National Defence Force, the Amhara and Afar Special Forces, alongside our Air Force, has resulted in the total defeat of the enemy and the recapture of all territories in the Afar and Amhara regions.
After this announcement, we went to the streets of the capital Addis Ababa to hear what people have to say about the battlefield gains that the government said were the beginning of the end of TPLF.
This is news we have all welcomed with extreme joy. This indicates two things as well. Whichever enemy comes against us, from now on, we shall defeat. And second, it is clear testimony that our unity can resolve any challenge whatsoever that comes before us.
I'm very happy, really. Because of the rebels' attack, many, including women and children, have been evicted from their homes. Now, they're free, and I'm very happy.
TPLF spokesperson Getachew Reda said their force withdrew from the Amhara and Afar regions to pave way for a peaceful resolution of the conflict. He said, and I quote, "We hope that by us withdrawing, the international community will do something about the situation in Tigray, as they can no longer use an excuse that our forces are invading Amhara and Afar." End of quote.
They are defeated, period. There's no other way about it. Our National Defense Force has defeated them the right way. By the way, if more sacrifice is needed, we are ready to head to the battlefield. I'll do it myself. I've got no problems doing so.
They are always good at propaganda, so we do not trust whatever they claim. We only trust our Prime Minister, and the team led by our Prime Minister has won and defended the sovereignty of Ethiopia. The proof of victory is everywhere for anyone to see. All local and international TV stations, including yours, are reporting this. So we do not give an ear for their lies.
Now that war is subsiding, many say the humanitarian situation in the north of the country must be given due attention. Equally important is also the post-conflict reconstruction issue, which Ethiopian authorities already say that billions are needed to return the war-torn areas to normalcy. Grumjara CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
We turn to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where at least 3 people have been killed during protests over rising insecurity. The demonstrators in the eastern town of Goma are also protesting over an alleged plan to deploy Rwandan troops in the area. Here is CGTN's Wanja Mongai with that story.
The protesters have been decrying what they claim is the arrival of Rwandese troops in Goma. But while expressing their dissatisfaction, the protests have turned fatal.
Our countrymen who called for a city shutdown attacked the police officers. They attacked the police officers. I know a police superintendent who was killed. His body is in the morgue. He was shot dead at his service post in Rukoko, at the Nyiragongo police station. His body is at the morgue.
The other 2 casualties are civilians, also killed on Monday. The demonstrators have been blocking the streets in the eastern town with makeshift barricades and stones. They say they are tired of insecurity, regional violence, and attacks by armed groups. To them, the Rwandese troops are not offering a solution to any of their problems.
We are angry because our army is supposed to be one of the best in Africa, but we learned that it has just asked for help. How come?
The government has denied the claims regarding Rwandan troops coming to help. Recently, at least 1,700 Ugandan troops were sent to the DRC to battle the Allied Democratic Forces, an insurgent group linked to a spate of deadly attacks. North Kivu and Ituri provinces in the east have been in turmoil for decades, causing massive deaths and displacement. In order to quell the atrocities in the east, President Felix Tshisekedi announced a state of siege in May this year. That despite heavy presence of the army and a United Nations peacekeeping mission. Wanjamongai, CGTN.
Stay with us as we take a short break here on Africa Live. Here's what's coming up. Search and relief operations continue in the Philippines as dozens are reported missing in the aftermath of Typhoon Rai.
this is it. I'm just about to be shot.
It's a little tense here. Bottles are being thrown. As they do so,
there are about 3 critical bridges here in Malawi. That's one of them. We're going to cross that bridge.
As you can see behind me, police forces
who are replying with gas. Gas just came in.
Tear gas, so it's all begun now.
Divisions leading the charge into West Mosul have brought us here.
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots.
This is where most of the fighting has been concentrated.
This is the front line now after 9 days of fighting.
We're about 2 to 3 kilometers from
within
the front
clear
line.
View of this front line position.
Welcome back. Now, China has called on Germany to continue playing a positive role in stabilizing China-EU relations. In the first phone call with Olaf Scholz since he became Chancellor, President Xi Jinping said the two sides should expand cooperation in the green and digital economies. Scholz said he hoped a China-EU investment deal would be ratified soon. Elsewhere, Chinese President Xi Jinping has extended condolences to his Philippines counterpart, Rodrigo Duterte, for casualties and property damage caused by Typhoon Rai. The Chinese embassy in Manila says it has accumulated around 20,000 food packages worth around $160,000. The Chinese government says it has also sent over 4 million kilos of rice to different ports in the Southeast Asian country. The death toll from Typhoon Rai has risen to 375. Dozens are still missing. Our correspondent Gretchen Malalad has more.
The true scale of the destruction still remains unknown because rescue workers are still unable to reach some disaster-hit areas. One example in the province of Palawan, where 5 bridges there were destroyed by the typhoon. The Philippine National Red Cross says that they wanted to send urgent supplies like food, water and medicines, but communication lines are still down and they can't travel there until the bridges have been repaired. So aid workers are having a difficult time reaching communities that are cut off due to debris and still flooded areas. The death toll keeps on climbing every day. The Philippine National Police, whose thousands of personnel are now on the ground, reported that at least 375 people have been killed. Most of the deaths were in the central region of Visayas and the Caraga region in northeastern Mindanao. There are 56 people reported missing while 500 people sustained injuries. Typhoon Rai has displaced almost 500,000 people in the region. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana says that they are still assessing the total damage from Typhoon Rai. The initial figures released for agriculture, a total of 30,000 hectares of crops were wiped out. That amounts to at least $7 million. Secretary Lorenzana says that the government is now focusing on the food and water distribution for the survivors and providing medical care to the injured.
The death toll from Malaysia's floods has risen to 14, with over 70,000 others displaced. Evacuees are housed in government relief centers, but officials warn coronavirus cases may rise due to crowded shelters. Days of torrential rain triggered some of Malaysia's worst flooding in years over the weekend, swamping cities and villages and cutting off major roads. Thousands of emergency service and military personnel have been mobilized. Critics say that's not enough, and volunteers have stepped in to provide food and boats for rescue efforts. Russian President Vladimir Putin is again warning the West of countermeasures in response to its threats over Ukraine. Speaking to senior military officials, Putin said Russia would respond, quote, adequately to any aggression and if Western countries crossed any red lines. Tensions have been mounting along the borders of Russia and Ukraine. Moscow is asking NATO to de-escalate military activities in the area and avoid expanding its membership to Ukraine and other former Soviet republics. Earlier, a senior Russian official said contacts were underway between Moscow and Washington for both sides to potentially reach an agreement. South Africans are getting into the spirit of Christmas. Celebrations were halted last year when the country was gripped by a second wave of the coronavirus and churches were forced to close their doors. This year, restrictions are less stringent despite a fourth wave spreading across the country. It has allowed churches to open their doors to commemorate Christmas. CGTN's Julie Shire has that report.
It's almost Christmas. Gospel songs ring out of Johannesburg's Rosebank Union Church as it prepares to celebrate the most marked event on the Christian calendar.
This is a great season for the Christian community to remember and to think about the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ. Christ came to die for us as sinners, and it's showing us the love of God, basically. We'll still be gathering. Obviously, we are limited to 700 people in-house, and then we will also have a multiple of services, maybe 2 or 3 services on a Christmas Day.
Last year, festivities were thwarted by a devastating second wave of COVID-19. The joy and love of Christmas was replaced by heartache and pain as many fell ill or lost loved ones to the Delta variant.
It hit me hard on friends that I've lost, and more so on my friends that got into some depression that I had to deal with and try to support. So it's a bit of sweet and sour in that way when you think of people that you know very close that actually might be experiencing Christmas, and you wish you could just reach out that hand to them to say, hey, I'm here.
At times, I think it's been very lonely. It has felt isolated. But I've been absolutely impressed with the way the church has pulled it together. So quickly we went on to online services. So I didn't feel that bad. I didn't feel that lonely. But it's nice to be back. It's nice to be back at church.
This year, the impact of the Omicron variant has been less severe. Hospitals are quieter and restrictions far more relaxed.
Christmas is about fun and getting together. It's a joyous celebration. It's remembering what Christ did for us as a Saviour. And it has a great family element to it as well. So you get families together, you get friends together, and so whenever you have these problems with sort of restrictions, that negates that a little bit, and so that does take the edge off it a bit.
I know, like last year, you can always just be with your immediate family, mom, dad, brother, sister, at home. But community plays an important role in Christmas for me, where I know that everyone is just so happy and excited for Christmas. It definitely influences my mood, and then at home it influences that, so it's like a domino effect for me.
The pandemic is still far from over, but South Africa has chosen to stay open for business. Authorities have urged caution as the Omicron variant continues its rapid spread. It is, however, a relief for many to be able to recoup valuable family time lost through a long and tough lockdown. Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Now, couscous is a traditional Tunisian and North African dish. The traditional recipe is made of semolina with vegetables and meats or fish. Couscous is the most common food in Tunisia, Algeria, Libya and Morocco, and is a staple across the region. Adnan Shawashi tells us more.
This annual festival gathers the best couscous chefs who make traditional recipes or innovate by adding new flavors and ingredients. Tunisian couscous chefs believe that the traditional dish remains the best for local consumers. It is usually prepared from wheat or barley. Couscous can also be made using maize or millet ground into semolina. It is then rolled into small balls, soaked and steamed repeatedly.
I'm making couscous and selling this tasty food to companies, families, shops, tourists and ordinary clients who like the traditional taste of this dish. Couscous has changed my life. Now I want others to learn how to make it.
Couscous can be made with lamb, beef, fish, chicken or vegetables. The recipes and ingredients are different, but it's always tasty.
Fudu Toma is the president of the association Flavors of My Country in Sub-Saharan Africa. The cook says couscous is a shared culinary heritage which brings people together.
We are participating in this international couscous contest and festival of Maghrebian couscous to show that sub-Saharan countries also make this dish in their own way. We valorize couscous, whether it's from the North Africa or Cameroon, Senegal, Togo, Benin or Côte d'Ivoire.
The Tunisian Association Flavors of My Country is planning to organize several couscous events and festivals. This project will contribute to sharing this traditional recipe with food lovers in the whole world.
Couscous is part of our cultural heritage that we must preserve while thinking of its future. Couscous lovers in Tunisia want to spread this dish and make it a universal food that people prepare at home and enjoy in all corners of the globe.
Last year, the United Nations added the couscous dish to its intangible cultural heritage list after Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco and Mauritania submitted the entry to UNESCO. Tunisia's Couscous Festival celebrates this shared food heritage. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
On to the Horn of Africa now, where Somalia has over the years been a major exporter of livestock to the Middle Eastern market. However, the ongoing drought in the country and delayed rains have reduced exports and earnings, adversely affecting many livestock dealers and owners. Mohamed Kahir has the details from Mogadishu.
Livestock keeping is the main economic activity in Somalia. It generates millions of dollars every year for locals. Through export earnings, the recurrent droughts and famine are now threatening this lucrative venture.
We have experienced such conditions in the market before, in previous years. For example, a goat costing $60 before is now selling $25, and that is due to the drought, farming, and other aspects of the country.
Livestock dealers say the investors in the century-old market are diverting their resources to alternative businesses as the drought situation worsens.
There is a serious famine situation across the country which has devalued the livestock. Likewise, dealers who used to buy the livestock have diverted their investments, especially to help citizens affected by the drought. So no one is buying goats here.
Somali authorities say they're working hard to put in place measures to mitigate the impact of the drought on the farming communities.
You know, we have ever increasing livestock population in Somalia, which also has a very serious impact on the rangeland situation of the country. And we don't produce fodder for our livestock. We have huge livestock, but we don't have what these livestock have to eat. We have not prepared fodder. Somalia doesn't produce, except the grass, which is being cultivated.
Somalia is home to 50% of the world camel population. That's about 7 to 8 million heads, meaning they need tons of fodder to feed on. That means when the drought comes with scarcity of water and drought, they will suffer. Mohamed Kahir, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Well, it's just about time for us to take another short break, and we'll be back with the business. Rama's back, though, with the business headlines.
That's right, Mahia. Here's what's coming up in business news. Authorities in Tunisia have announced record revenues from the collection of customs duties. We'll have the numbers. And the South African utility Eskom says it will meet the end December deadline to start the process of unbundling the firm.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Accra is my kind of city. That's because when I'm here, I feel like I'm back home in Lagos or Abidjan, which are two of the major cities I grew up in.
Business in Africa is
After about a decade covering business news on the continent, I've learned it's all about the high risk, but also the high returns and the high energy. You simply have to adjust in order to keep pace. When I started out as a journalist, my dream was to open people's minds to the different perspectives. From the CEO in the boardroom to the trader out in the street, we all have different stories. From Accra to Addis Ababa, from Cairo to Cape Town, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Here at CGTN, we realize that Africa is on the move, and it's moving fast, but we're moving right along with it. I'm Ucheo Koronkwa, and I'm a business anchor and reporter at CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's start in North Africa. The Tunisian government has announced record revenues in its description from the collection of customs duties. The finance ministry has been working to improve the performance of its customs services by strengthening border control and digitizing all administrative procedures. Here's CGTN's Annie Chwachi with the details.
The Directorate General of Customs in Tunisia revealed that the revenue from collection of customs duties has reached around $2.69 billion until the end of December 2021, up 17.2% compared to the same period in 2020.
The customs services play an important economic role. In addition to the collection of custom duties, the state revenue also increased because custom guards and inspection units throughout Tunisia have thwarted 7,917 attempts to smuggle goods. Our agents also seized goods worth a total of around $100 million in 2021.
The Tunisian Customs also designed a strategic plan with the support of the International Customs Organization. This project will last 3 years until the end of 2025.
This strategic plan includes 10 strategic projects aimed at the technological and digital development of the Tunisian customs, including the establishment of a new information system that will replace the automated customs information system, which dates back to 1982.
The Customs Innovation Laboratory at the Directorate General of Customs has launched a national competition for startups and students to design digital applications to improve the performance of the Tunisian customs services.
The competition aims to create the latest digital solutions that will facilitate the work of the customs agents, officers and administrations in Tunisia. Our objective is to prepare for the transition to smart, modern and digital customs.
The Tunisian customs are in charge of fighting against smuggling and trading fraud, as well as drawing up money laundering sources. The value of seized goods in 2021 saw a 10.8% rise compared to the same period last year.
The customs revenues collected for the state treasury have exceeded the estimates of the finance department for the 2021 state budget. This increase is the result of relentless efforts made by the customs intelligence units and its agents to dismantle smuggling networks on border crossings. Abdel Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
On the opposite end of the continent, the South African utility Eskom has confirmed that it will meet the 31st December deadline to start its unbundling process. The company essentially will be splitting itself into 3 distinct business units. Here's Angela Kopler with an explanation.
Eskom's group CEO says the transmission business will be up and running in 2022, but wouldn't be drawn on the exact date.
We still require a transmission license, first of all, to be cancelled. The transmission license currently is in the hands of Eskom Holdings SOC, so that needs to be cancelled, and then a new license needs to be issued. And we are in discussions with both the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy as well as NERSA to put in our application for this new license.
Part of the process has been to keep lenders and bondholders informed about the status of the unbundling.
We have appointed a financial advisor as well as a legal advisor to assist us in this process, and we really appreciate the continued support from our lenders as we embark on this very significant restructuring process.
There's also some regulatory work that has to be completed, mainly to help open up the market to more competition.
There are certain amendments to the Electricity Regulation Act that need to be put in place. This is not a prerequisite for the legal separation, but it will facilitate the operation of a more liberalized market dispensation going forward.
There is one matter that hasn't been dealt with, how the huge $24.5 billion debt burden will be distributed.
Our principle is based on where the debt was raised, in particular generation on the new build projects. The most significant portion of the debt would then follow generation, and then the remaining would go to transmission and distribution. So you would expect that the largest portion of that 392 billion rand to go to generation. Obviously, we'll have to engage, as indicated, with the lenders, make sure we all align before we communicate any further details on that.
While the legal separation is almost a done deal, it's now time to get the operational issues sorted out so that this business unit can start operating. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
And we're still in the country. South Africa has received its first shipment of liquefied natural gas from the Netherlands. A local producer, DNG Energy, is investing $5 billion in a plant that will allow it to handle bulk LNG imports. As the country tries to wean itself off using coal, fields with comparatively low emissions like LNG are getting a lot more investment. Sumitra Naidu has that story.
Liquefied natural gas is not only a cleaner energy source, but also a cheaper alternative to fossil fuels.
Without energy, there's no growth. If you bring energy that is cost effective, that is reliable, that is sustainable, it only means that people will have the confidence of saying, I can invest in a factory, I can invest in that project. It allows the sentiment to change. And when people start consuming the product, and it actually is a product that is beneficial for their bottom line, then more and more businesses get generated because of the multiplier effect of people being in the economy.
DNG is a 100% black-owned energy infrastructure company in South Africa. It has been working on this deal for several years. It also had a power supply bid in for Eskom earlier this year, but lost to Car Power. DNG is disputing the win.
DNG Power is taking up the call from our president to say that you can produce up to 100 megawatts for various customers. We have taken that call. We're starting to do it, and we want to be part of the solution. So we are there to support Eskom in the best way possible.
In the meantime, liquefied natural gas is being delivered to commercial customers in the industrial, transport, marine and power sectors in South Africa.
The benefit is reliability, it is cost effectiveness, it is sustainability. So for us, having invested through these many years in terms of having the right infrastructure for us to get to this position, it means that we become that reliable fuel partner for you. It fits into government policy because our policy is to have net zero carbon emissions by, let's say, 2050.
It's a different mindset, it's a different way of energy. We have a vision of a sustainable way of transport and to make mobility as sustainable as possible. We do expect the success of our customers. We know that this is a much cleaner source of energy, so we expect that they will have much more fuel economy on their buses and trucks. We also expect them to have a much cleaner energy on their fleets. They will contribute to a better environment for the whole country.
This development catalyzes the growth of a new gas economy in South Africa and will create much needed jobs. As a more cleaner fuel and a more sustainable fuel, liquefied natural gas will also help South Africa transition away from fossil fuels. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
On to Zimbabwe now. The central bank of there has ruled out recognizing cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum as legal tender. But it is exploring the option of setting up a central bank digital currency instead. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, in fact, plans to send a team over to Nigeria to learn from that nation's experience in setting up and rolling out the nation's first CBDC, the e-Naira. Here's Mahia Mutua with the details from Harare.
Zimbabwean monetary authorities' aversion to cryptocurrency is well documented. In 2018, they shut down the country's first Bitcoin exchange and banned cryptocurrency trading. The central bank, which has repeatedly said it does not trust cryptocurrency, is mulling a Zimbabwean e-dollar instead. The move follows several central banks that are working on rolling out a central bank digital currency, CBDC. That would give authorities here the control they don't have over cryptocurrencies.
The one thing about cryptocurrency, especially the blockchain, is that it's decentralized. Decentralized meaning that it's controlled by thousands of nodes, which are all over the place. So if you want to create more Bitcoin, you literally have to coordinate with 1 million nodes at the same time to make that decision. But with a CBDC, central bank digital currency, they still remain control, and if they want to increase the supply or decrease the supply, it's still centralized.
Authorities will hope that the adoption of this digital currency will be quick and easy in an economy where the bulk of transactions are already being done electronically. Due to persistent cash shortages, more than 80% of payments here are done electronically. If more countries adopt digital currencies, that may help facilitate direct payments between nations and help Zimbabwe circumvent Western-imposed sanctions that have prevented payments to and from the country, as the funds have to be routed through the United States.
Right now, if you want to make an RTGS payment to South Africa, you can't, because we are still on that Bretton Woods system. So now when we digitalize and we're now using a digital currency, we can make RTGS payments literally overnight. So I think it's a good thing. But as long as it's managed correctly, that's the only thing we're advocating for.
In the past, Zimbabwe's central bank has been accused of fueling money supply by printing money. Afar, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
The former deputy chair of the African Union Commission, Erastus Mwencha, says that African countries have benefited a fair bit from the Belt and Road Initiative. The gigantic Chinese infrastructural project has enabled millions on the continent to rise out of poverty. Now, Mr. Mwencha's remarks come after the recently concluded meeting by the Advisory Council of the Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation, which was held virtually. China's State Council and Foreign Minister Wang Yi addressed the opening ceremony.
First of all, globally, the Belt and Road Initiative has lifted millions of people out of poverty. It has also delivered a number of key projects that are making doing business much easier. It has connected people globally. The Mombasa-Nairobi Rail. This is a significant project in many ways that has also transformed the way of doing business between Mombasa and Nairobi. Cargo, which used to be on the road, is now transported by SGR, which has reduced the congestion on the roads.
Dockhands in Cote d'Ivoire's two main ports of Abidjan and San Pedro have resumed work after a week-long strike. Now, that comes in the wake of talks to the government on Monday. The workers were demanding far better working conditions and higher pay. They blocked access to the ports, threatening to curb cocoa bean exports from the world's top producer of that commodity. One of the dockers' demands was that the government has to respect the 2019 agreements to pay them €3, roughly $3.40 an hour, in line with international standards. At the moment, they earn about €1 an hour. Coffee farmers in Uganda are concerned about the growing threat of pests and diseases on their plantations. Now, the diseases do come at a time when Uganda's coffee industry is right at its peak. Farmers are now worried that they could actually be losing out on coffee prices that have hit levels not seen in at least a decade. CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga has this report.
Christopher Magara is a coffee farmer in central Uganda, but a routine check on his farm shows that the plants are affected by pests and diseases.
Previously, they were being attacked by this disease now, so we need to improve the garden. So I'm going to replace all the good bad tree, the old tree, with the new planting.
Scientists confirm that the plants are being affected by leaf rust and coffee berry disease.
These are fungal diseases. They normally like very high humid areas, and they also, especially for the rust, it likes the high temperature areas. So when we are having a lot of rains and the temperatures are quite high, then you will find that the coffee leaf rust becomes more prevalent.
But a solution is in the offing, replacing the old coffee trees with disease-resistant plants. Scientists at this research institute are developing new coffee varieties that are resistant to pests and diseases. But in the meantime, they are encouraging farmers to use recommended pesticides and fungicides to keep their plants healthy. But as the farmers apply these remedies, they are also asking for more technical support.
People need to be educated about the use of fertilizers, the agrochemicals.
Latest figures from the Uganda Coffee Development Authority show that the country earned close to $630 million this year, compared to about $512 million last year. Uganda's target is to produce more than 20 million bags by 2025. And farmers like Magara are hoping to play a bigger part of this production. Hilara Isga, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
All right, then I'll leave it there for the time being, but I'll be back at the top of the hour. We'll be heading over to Ghana in global business. There's a fairly big row over there over a proposed levy on cashless transactions. It's just 1.75%. But believe me when I tell you, there are actual fights on the floor of Parliament about that particular tax. We'll have the details at 1800 GMT. See you then. For now, back to Mahia.
Rama, thank you. Well, there's plenty more still to come here on Africa Live, including in the sport, three-time champions Nigeria face uncertainty ahead of the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations finals in Cameroon.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome to the sport. Now, the Africa